Well, hey there. You've stumbled upon the intersection of internet quandaries and psychological insight. Welcome to Veritas Views on AITA, where the quirks of the internet meet the expertise of Veritas Psychology Partners.
Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Gayle MacBride. I'm joined, as always, by our dynamic duo of psychologists.
Dr. Gayle MacBride. And Dan, once again, welcome to you. I am looking forward to having a thoughtful, nuanced conversation about who's the asshole.
Right, which is always a great way to spend Sunday morning. Which is when we record this podcast.
It's true.
Yeah. All right.
All right, Michael, tell the newbies what's going on here.
Yeah, well, for those newbies out there, if there are any, I mean, I assume this is a first podcast for somebody at some point.
That's fair.
What we deal with is somebody on the internet has posted a scenario and said, hey, this thing happened, and I was part of this experiment or this scenario. Who's the asshole here? Because they want that objective perspective of the internet. And we'll see if we can come to some kind of determination about what Dan or Gayle think about them and whether that matches with what the internet's expectations are or judgments. I don't know.
Do you think they're looking for objective feedback, or do you think that as often as not, people are looking for confirmation for their behavior or choices?
I have certainly seen
for objectivity.
Yeah, I've seen both. I've seen people who are like genuinely like, am I the asshole here? And others who are just looking to have the internet tell them, you're a good guy.
Right.
Our job is to pick through that because, I mean, as psychologists, sometimes people do come in. Most of the time people come in with, gosh, what's going on here? But sometimes people are not in as good a place to, especially when we see couples, I think. Couples will often come in and they're like, I have my axe to grind and I need to explain to you how my partner's wrong. Yeah. And that's often our first task as couples therapists, to get people off of that perspective of I just need validation that my partner is a terrible person and I'm doing everything right. And that's a big part of our job, is to get them to that place where they're like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I agree. I mean, I think sometimes people do post because they want objective feedback. I think a lot of times, though, when we're looking to the internet, we are just looking for some confirmation with an axe to grind. And right. I'm curious if today's episode, which will it be?
What will it be? Michael, what do you got for it?
I'm curious if you think in the scenario where somebody wants confirmation, if then they pull up Reddit on their phone and they're like, see, I told you that I was right.
I suspect
that would be like a second layer of assholeness.
Yeah, I suspect the person who is posting in order to prove that they're not a dick to their partner is probably the same person who's going to then take this to their partner and say, see, I told you I'm not a dick.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me. How about that? I don't know for sure, but it wouldn't surprise me. But let's assume positive intent. Okay, Gayle's like, I know where he's going now.
I know where I'm going.
Assume positive intent and say that probably this person really does, whoever this our next OP is, probably does want to know if they're being an asshole.
And our job here is to be as fair as we can, and to give people a little bit of a sense of what it would be like to talk with a psychologist and the kinds of things that we would be worried about. This is, of course, not treatment, but this might just be an introduction to some concepts that folks might be interested or help, kind of hearing or thinking through. So,
all right. So
what's our scenario, Michael?
Yeah, this is the one I got for you today, which is, am I the asshole for assuming my husband should unclog the toilet, which he clogged with his own poop, before we leave for the beach?
No. The last thing I want to find when I get home, like you don't want that for, well, literally shit festering for however long you're going to be at the beach for. Man, that's nasty.
No,
yes, he should go and clog the toilet.
Unintentionally hilarious, because on the break we might have been talking about a toilet that was clogged in our household. So
yeah,
very timely.
Like I will forgive the child who is not yet of toilet unclogging age. We replaced our.
I find that in households that there is. Let me phrase this as a non-leading question. Dan, do you think in households with more than one adult, do you think there is one person who has more of the responsibility, specialty, if you will, to be the toilet unclogger, regardless of who clogged the toilet?
Forget.
Do you think that that's a role? There's the cook, there's the one who takes out the trash, there's the one who. Do you think that in relationships, do you think there's the one who unclogs the toilet?
I think in relationships there is almost always, and usually unintentional. There's like this unintentional, couples conspire. Couples conspire to assign tasks to each other, and like everybody knows the tasks are. Now, sometimes they talk about explicitly, "Oh, you're cooking dinner tonight. I'll cook dinner tomorrow night." But other times, like no one ever talked about who's checking the oil, but there's always one partner who's like in charge of checking the oil. And maybe it's not in your relationship. I'm not saying always, but like in many relationships.
Checking my car these days.
Yeah, well, you need
but I hear you. I hear you.
Cars, but yeah, no. There's often like one person whose job it is to more or less do this thing, and everybody kind of knows who it is. And sometimes you've planned it that way, and sometimes it just sort of happens that one person does it. So I'm going to say to this question, yeah, for the most part, I think that couples do have someone who is the toilet unclogger, because that's just been the person who started unclogging the toilet a long time ago, and then they ended up being the toilet unclogger unintentionally. So I'm going to go with that. Probably happens quite a bit.
Yeah. And so then the question for this couple is whether or not is the OP, Michael, is this a female male partner?
It is. Yeah. The female is posting, and the husband is the one who clogged the toilet.
She's irritated that he clogs the toilet. They have a plan to leave the house, and he doesn't get the toilet unclogged. So I begin to just sort of wonder, or massage facts in my head, which one of them is the toilet unclogger.
Yeah. But I also I think, and we do discuss this sometimes, Dr. MacBride.
Yeah.
We probably should hear the fact pattern here.
I could read the rest of it.
Oh, you could.
Wow.
Excellent. Would you read the rest of it for us, Michael? Because we'd be interested in hearing what the rest of it says.
Okay, so this one starts out and it says, "We've been having some marital issues, so I'm not sure if I'm overreacting here. This morning, I asked my husband if he wanted to go to the beach. He agreed, and I waited for the laundry to finish before he left. When I was ready, I asked if he was too. He told me the toilet was clogged and he needed a plunger. I suggested that if he couldn't find one, he could try to break up the clog and dispose of what he used. I know, gross, but in a pinch, if you don't have a plunger, it's something we've done in the past."
Oh, buy a plunger.
Seriously.
Like if you could, and I'm not saying, yes, I know there's affordability issues, but plungers are relatively expensive. And I'm going to assume that this couple has the financial wherewithal to go to the beach today, and maybe the beach is free, that they have the financial wherewithal to buy a plunger. And if you have a house, you need a plunger.
Yeah, it's just a basic tool in the house.
Yeah,
I mean, you
yeah,
must give it as a housewarming gift. And don't go high end. You can get one from the dollar store.
No, they're not expensive. Go buy a plunger.
Anyway.
So yeah, no. There's no excuse for not having a plunger once you've clogged the toilet even once.
Right.
There's no excuse for not having a plunger. All right.
So she's had this
Continue,
conversation.
Yeah.
She's had this conversation and then gone to work on laundry and assumed that he'd reach out to maintenance since we didn't have a plunger and our building has a maintenance guy. So I guess this is an apartment complex.
Okay, fair enough.
After about 15 minutes, I asked if he found a plunger, and he said he was waiting for the toilet to drain. I reminded him he'd likely need a plunger, but he tried flushing again with no success. Another 15 minutes later, I find him on the couch. What's that?
It's clogged.
Yes. So 15 minutes more pass. I find him on the couch. When I asked if he'd contacted maintenance, he seemed surprised and asked why he'd do that when we're headed to the beach. I explained that I needed to use the bathroom and the mirror before he left, so I didn't think leaving the toilet clogged was an option. This upset him, and he stormed out to buy a plunger. Now I'm wondering, was I wrong to expect the toilet to be unclogged before leaving?
Wow. Okay. So I think there's missed opportunity here. We have forgotten to coordinate and really talk through our various plans here. Storming out is never okay. That really, and it's interesting that the OP starts with explaining that they're having some marital difficulties. And so we may
Yeah.
be missing opportunities and adding fuel to sort of the dissatisfaction pattern. This is probably an instance where they're both right. And then because they're not talking and not communicating, it just gets exponentially harder.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think, Dr. Kessler?
I agree. Here's a couple who like, yeah, they're having issues, and as part of those issues, they're probably not having good conversation. And as part of not having good conversation, they didn't talk this through. And we talk so often about the critical nature of talking things through when you and your partner are having disputes or disagreements. And this almost certainly falls under the category of missed opportunity, just to say, hey, it's important to me to have that toilet unclogged as soon as possible. Can you call the maintenance guy, or maybe one of us should run out and get a plunger? And, oh, yeah, I can totally see that, honey. Yes, I will go. I'll call the maintenance guy or go get a plunger. Like,
well, and I can see his point of like, well, but the maintenance guy is going to not even be able to get here for 2 hours. Are we really going to sit here and wait for him? We want to be at the beach, and so maybe it doesn't make sense to call maintenance, right?
It's still a conversation.
But it's still a conversation.
It's still a conversation. It's still him saying to her. It's still him saying to her.
That's why he's not necessarally wrong, but they both miss it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to go to the beach until the laundry's done. That's great. Let me use that time, or you know, let's call the. Can we call the maintenance? Can we call the maintenance guy when we get back?
Right.
Her
objection is the stew with the poo sitting in the toilet all day.
That's a well. The other problem with that, and I can speak to this from home experience. A clogged toilet, if it starts to run on, is going to flood the home.
But she didn't necessarily say that it's running; it's clogged.
It could. You do not want to leave a toilet clogged.
Well, once it's
like turn it off. I'm not a maintenance guy. I'm a psychologist.
Sure, no, I mean once
you want to turn the water off.
Flowing.
You want to turn the water off if it's not flowing, just in case. Like if it, because you don't want to
flow again. Either. It's not gonna refill once it stopped. Once the lever stopped.
You never know these things. I'm just water scares me.
Water scares you. I understand.
Yeah.
I get it. I do.
Okay.
I think that again, I mean, it doesn't matter. And if we're in this scenario and you said to me, hey, the toilet's clogged and it's gonna be 2 hours for maintenance, I'm willing to go, but I'm not willing to take a chance of this running down into the apartment below us. I'm gonna turn the water off. Okay.
Yeah, but it's a
conversation.
All of this. It's a conversation.
Yes.
And each made assumptions about what the other was going to do and what the other wanted, and neither one of them. I could see why they're having marital problems, because marital problems often come from not hearing each other and not being able to share with your partner your needs, wants, thoughts, feelings, etc. And here's a perfect example of a couple who failed to be able to have the conversation that was really important.
And the pattern is so spot on, Dan. If you had a nickel for every time a couple walked into your office and said, "Oh my God, we fight about the stupidest things."
Right.
We fought about this toilet clog. Like it's always the stupid thing.
Fought about the toilet
that
clog
we just fall apart over.
Of course they fought about the toilet clog because they didn't have a conversation.
Right. And they didn't have a shared plan. They had separate expectations for how this was going to go, and neither was probably right or wrong.
To begin answering her question, she's not an asshole for expecting her husband to unclog the toilet, but she missed an opportunity to have a conversation with him. And again, probably given her statement they're having problems, probably part of a pattern of missed opportunities and problems that they should be addressing.
Yeah. And she really did miss the opportunity to assume positive intent where he was trying to be ready. Okay, you're working on laundry. I know this is going to take
he was laying on the couch.
Sure, but laying on the couch can be, I'm waiting for you. I'm ready. I'm not going to take on the toilet task because that's going to take too long. That's going to back up your beach plan. Assume positive intent.
Right. Yeah. No. All right. Fine. But
it's her lens of him laying on the couch and being an oaf, and she's already pissed at him. I'm going to take that one with a little bit of a grain of salt.
No, I'm not.
Wow.
He had. And maybe it's because I see the clogged toilet as a greater urgency than he is seeing it as. If you have time to sit on the couch, you have time to try troubleshooting this problem.
But
You
in
know?
his head, he has gone, this is maintenance's problem. And so now I am dependent on maintenance's time frame.
No,
I disagree with his approach to the clogged
no,
toilet.
he's wrong. He's just wrong.
But
If the toilet's clogged,
he's being mildly dickish, more than mildly dickish.
at least, if not more so. Because, like, I mean, there are things you call. I agree that there are things that are the problem of maintenance to handle when you live in an apartment building. But I think of those as like broken stuff,
Mm-hmm.
like clog, like if a toilet needs to be snaked out because there's a serious problem with it, that's a maintenance job. But if a toilet needs to be clogged because you pooped big and there's too much poop in the toilet and you maybe use too much paper and like that's not a maintenance problem. That's a like get a plunger and unclog the toilet. So
Don't disagree with you, just for the
I
record.
just no, I just this is not. I don't think I'm going to call maintenance because had a
I
big
would
meal
be
last
embarrassed
night. We
to
went
call
out to
maintenance
eat.
for this
Yeah, we
one.
went out to eat, and I had this big bowl of, and now like, I clogged the toilet. And, can you unplug it for me? I phoned the maintenance guy. I'm like, dude, buy a plumber, buy a plunger. I mean,
Right.
no. So I don't. I want this. Just no. Go get off the couch and go to the dollar store or the Home Depot or the Lowe's or whatever your local hardware store is. I'm not plugging any hardware store. Go get a plunger and you're a grown ass
Or a
man.
stick. Apparently, she's cool if you just go get a stick and break that shit up.
Oh no,
Give it
no,
another
I don't.
flush.
That just seems. That just. I don't. I no. I'm not a. That one. That one seems like there's a better choice there than. Besides, and she said it's happened before, and they've used the stick method before. You're an
I'm
adult.
annoyed at both of them because no one's buying a plunger in this house.
I'm annoyed at both of them. You're adults. You're grown adults. Go buy a plunger. Okay, it's not like I'm asking you to go out and like, buy a new water softener that's $2,000 or something like that. Go buy. It's a plunger. It's like $2. Go to the thing and buy the plunger and clean the thing out. And it's just no. I'm not sympathetic here. I'm not sympathetic to either one of them on the issue of the poop clog. They should own a plunger
Agreed.
because it's a repeat issue.
Agreed.
And I'm more upset with him for sitting on the couch and not fixing than I am at her for being mad at him.
And I'm still less upset at him for that.
No.
And that's okay. We get to differ. We actually don't have to come out
We
on
don't have to agree. We can land in slightly different places. I don't.
think that they
Either
should
way,
have had
she
a
asked,
plunger.
"Am I the asshole for this?" I'm firmly in the category of no. She's not the asshole for expecting him to take care of this before they leave.
So
However-
let me massage.
Go ahead. Please. Go ahead.
Just for a moment, just for shits and giggles.
Oh,
Sorry,
God.
guys. Let's reverse this.
Yeah.
She causes the poop clog, and he's
Right.
the unclogger.
Yeah.
She says to him, honey, I clogged the toilet again. Or I went to the bathroom and the toilet's clogged again. I'd like to go to the beach. I'm going to work on laundry. Can you get that unclogged? And he doesn't. He then defers it to maintenance. Is he the asshole or is she the asshole because it's her clog? Just massage facts land.
You're even with your massage facts. If this is their agreed upon task list,
Yes.
well, I would say there's nothing inherently masculine about unclogging a toilet or inherently feminine about it, whatever,
No.
But if that has become their agreed upon task list, and this is his task, it is something of an emergent task, and he fails to do it, I'm still not mad
Annoyed
at
at him.
I'm still upset with him for not doing it.
You don't think she should have gone out and bought the plunger at least?
I mean, if she's willing to clog the toilet and they don't have a plunger in the house, well, if they don't have a plunger,
She
in the
wants it
house,
done.
there's no designated plunger in the house.
Well, maybe there is, but maybe he doesn't mind the stick method. Or he's just going to defer it to maintenance. There is nobody in the house. This task is totally unassigned.
Clearly.
We're going to ask
I
the
mean,
poor maintenance person to do it.
I think they're equally responsible for buying a plunger. All right.
Agreed.
I mean, again, they're grown-ups. They're equally responsible for buying a plunger. But I'm still like they needed to have a conversation.
They did.
But I'm still more annoyed with him than I am with her.
And I'm massaging the flat facts a little bit because this is something that she wanted, and there was no plunger in the house. And I really think, there was an opportunity that was missed to have a conversation of, hey, gosh, we still don't have a plunger. I'm going to run out, or can you run out, right, to get this thing done? Who's going to do the laundry? Who's going to get the plunger? We can't leave. This is more urgent.
So what I'm hearing now is that neither one of us is willing to call someone an asshole. Yeah, I'm putting more of the blame on him than her. Not necessarily as an asshole, but he really should be doing this. And you're more willing to say that there's a little bit of shit to go around, as it were, between both of them.
Where I will, on the original question, yes. Where I find the biggest fault, where I will move toward calling him an asshole, if not just dickish, somewhere between that, is he stormed out.
Oh, yeah. I forgot.
I don't like that behavior. That's not cool. Cross the line there. But to the OP's question, I do have a problem with both adults and no one having a plunger and taking some responsibility and having a better conversation about what the plan was and the various moving parts, the laundry, the beach, and the.
You and I have both worked with enough couples to know that his description of this might have been,
for sure.
I was going to wait till later. And then she said, it really need to be done now. So I'm like, all right, I'll go get a plunger. And I left. And then she got all mad at me for storming out. And I just went out to go get a plunger. What's the big deal? I wasn't storming out. I get totally, we're accepting her perspective here that he stormed out. His perspective may very well be that there was no storming here at all.
But you accepted her perspective that he's just lounging on the couch versus being alone.
I will choose what to accept as the arbiter here, as one of the arbiters here. No, I think that it's and one of the problems we have, and we've talked about this before, if you're angry and you try to close the door behind you, it's probably going to slam. And he may have very well thought, okay, fine, I'll go get a plunger. It's no big deal. If you really, this is important to you, I will go get it. And she saw this as him storming out, and he just thought this was this thing. But remember, this is in the context of a couple in conflict who need to have conversations around how to resolve things, because they clearly resolve this poorly from the start with poor communication all the way through it. And that's why I'm less willing to call either one of them an asshole. I would rather he got up off the couch and did something about it. But there were so many missed opportunities for both of them to have conversation. And this is why we see couples in counseling so often, is they're not having the conversations to help them resolve things. So Michael, what did the internet say? Or did you get just anything else to say before I kick it, throw it up to Michael?
No. Kick it to Michael, please.
All right, Michael.
Well,
Thank you for having a conversation with me, Dan.
The internet they were almost universally saying she's not the asshole for expecting that. And almost universally, everybody said something like, for the love of God, you are married adults, get a fucking plunger. What is wrong with you? So that was like a direct quote multiple times.
That's great. That's great.
There was also one that was not the asshole. I'm a dude, a fat guy at that, and generally thought of as being kind of lazy. And even I would be appalled at a toilet sitting with poop in it all day.
No, that's just wow, that was a great beach trip. I'm gonna go get a shower now. I feel so good. You gotta get the sand off me and the salt off me. You walk into the bathroom and the bathroom in what world was it okay to leave this toilet clogged all day long? No. And clearly they only have one bathroom, because she said I need to use the bathroom and wash and do my face and things like that. So clearly they have one bathroom.
Yeah. And this is where I will take exception. They have one bathroom, and if anybody needs it, your shit is literally clogged this up, and all we're going to do is make it worse.
No, you got to fix that shit.
Yeah.
You got to take care of it. No, I'm not. So the internet agreed on that issue.
There were a couple things that were also interesting from the internet. One was one person said, I really have nothing to say other than in her title, she had censored OO out of poop. So it was P****. And they were like, you censored the word poop in a Am I the Asshole sub? What the fuck?
It's not like she wrote SH exclamation point T so that they wouldn't say the word shit in the post.
Right. So that was
Yeah.
pretty funny. Someone else
That's funny.
said, side note, Blue Dawn and boiling water often will work in a pinch if you don't have a plunger. So there was like advice about ways to get around having a plunger.
That's
Wow.
interesting. I'm not going to try. Maybe I should. I don't. Yeah, maybe not.
And then there was this whole side thread that you guys touched on, which was essentially like, it is not the maintenance guy's job to do this. Buy a
Yeah.
plunger, take care of your shit yourself. Like,
Yeah.
For sure.
reserve
No,
something
if
that
I-
is actually in the realm of maintenance for the
Yeah.
maintenance person.
I've
By the
never
way, in
been.
my area, I looked it up. Plunger is less than $16.
Is that
For
expensive?
for like a really good one. I mean,
Love it. I mean,
they need
for
a really good one.
$16, I want the plunger to plunge itself.
Well,
That
I
seems
will
like an
tell you,
awfully
that is the
expensive
going
plunger.
rate. I have bought plungers at the dollar store. Don't ask me. Well, you can ask me why. Maybe it's a bonus conversation. I don't know. And you can get the really cheap ones, the one with the short handle and the really weak bevel, for $1. So somewhere between $1 and $16, you can get a plunger to do the job.
All
But
right.
Dawn dish soap and boiling water is an interesting idea too.
It is.
Dawn does everything apparently.
I'm
not
looking this
sponsoring
up
us.
as we speak, and yes, the store brand plunger at my local big box hardware store that I won't name is $8.47, and that's for a good quality plunger there. So
All right.
And a plunger is cheaper than marital counseling as well, I suppose. So
it is.
Ooh, good score for Michael.
That's true, because that's going to be cheaper than the copay for one session probably, and if you got a big deductible, that could be problematic. Absolutely. So
Buy a plunger.
go buy a plunger. Go.
All right. Well, thank you both for another riveting debate into the collective conscious of the internet forums. Remember, morality is often shades of gray and not just
Brown.
brown and white.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
sorry.
was gonna say.
Couldn't resist.
Oh man.
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. Yeah, I couldn't resist.
All right. On that, well, thank you for bringing us another Am I the Asshole? Stay tuned for the bonus conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, please follow and share Veritas Views on the podcast platforms. And like Gayle said, we'll see you on the other side of the credits.
You can follow Dr. Dan Kessler at Dr. Dan Kessler and Dr. Gayle MacBride at Dr. G. MacBride. Oh, and you can find them both at veritaspp.com. Credits. Tickling the Ivories, Matthew Reddington. Art, production, and design, bringing this show together with flair and finesse, Michelle Love. Recording and editing, turning chaos into something worth sharing, Michael MacBride. Intro, outro, I'm Kelly Buttrick, a VO talent who just happens to be Dr. MacBride's cousin. Cats, CJ, Linus, Sadie, and Griffin. Hosting by whomever lost the coin flip. Interruptions by all their children. The content of this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Listening to this podcast does not constitute a therapist-client relationship. If you believe you may be experiencing a mental health issue, please seek the assistance of a qualified mental health professional. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, you can call or text 988 from anywhere in the U.S. to be connected to Crisis Mental Health Services.
As promised, here's that bonus conversation.
So, Dan, I'm curious if there is an experience. We've been talking about graduate school and graduate school experiences. I'm wondering if there is something from your graduate training that really stands out as sort of an interesting, informative experience or thing you learned. Not necessarily advice per se, but something you.
No, this is something I actually learned about myself in a breakthrough defensiveness. I was struggling with some personal stuff early on in graduate school. Father passed away in my first year of grad school, and I was making a lot of mistakes. And they said, you should go get some counseling. And they were right. So I go see this counselor and I sit down with her. Shout out to Dr. Susan Treffry. And I'm sitting down with her and I'm talking about like the faculty is this and the faculty is that and the faculty is this and they're dead. And I'm ranting and raving about how terrible I mean. And she said to me, all of what you're saying is true. It doesn't change the fact that you're making a lot of mistakes here and you're really screwing things up for yourself. Now, she didn't say that in those words, but that's what my brain remembers from 30 years ago, but it was something along the lines of, whether they are or not all of those things, let's talk about you and what you're doing wrong. And I think I've carried that with me through my work as a therapist. That thing like, yes, all the stuff you're saying is true. Like, yeah, all these other people, fine, whatever. But they're not here. Let's work on you. Let's work on your shit. And I think I felt really good at, the school loved me after I did my work. I stayed there and graduated and all that other stuff. But it was really, I think that was super valuable for me as a therapist to spend that time on the couch, as it were, learning how to do that introspection that I'm asking my clients to do in therapy. Like, yeah, and I find myself saying that to people. You probably do too. Like, yeah, okay, what you're saying is right. Yeah, your husband or wife or partner or friend or family or parent, yeah, they sound like they're a real jerk. And they're not here.
Right.
So let's work on your shit.
Yeah. No, I love that. And
it was a
it's
valuable moment.
A reminder that we all have stuff we can be working on.
Yeah.
And even in sometimes the worst of circumstances, there's still something we can be doing differently for ourselves. Why? Because we're going to be engaged in other relationships in our lives, professional, academic, romantic. And we maybe need to change that shitty pattern in ourselves in order to improve those relationships.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Well, there you go. A little personal insight.
Yeah. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. And tune in again next week for a whole other Am I the Asshole debate.
We love hearing from you, so please review us on Apple, Spotify, or, well, wherever you're listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please review, like, and follow. Also, give it a share. This helps us reach more listeners.